Hello, everyone. This is Night Phoenix 17, or Frozen Phoenix 19, or Dark Knight Phoenix if you watch my streams, or whatever you want to go with. My name is just Night from now on. I do this. I do a lot of reviews. I do Left 4 Dead 2 custom map reviews. I record loot crate reviews and openings and revealings. But today I'm gonna try something new. Uh, it's like 3 in the morning, but I figured I'd try something new. Try a review of a video game. I've seen a lot of people talk about this one, and it's fairly recent. It's about only a week old, and if you know what it is, and you should, uh, it's Batman. I know that my webcam cannot pick it up very well. I'll try to hold it up. Batman Arkham Knight. Now, I've had the enjoyment of playing this game. I thought it was fantastic. But I've heard a little bit of backlash on it. And I'll get to that in a few moments. Let me start with the pros of this game. It feels and plays exactly like the other Batman games, which is fine. It's fun. The controls are fluid. It feels right for the game. There doesn't feel like there's too many problems with the controls at all. It feels like you've played Arkham City again, but this time in a brand new environment. The fact that the story is really good. It wasn't that bad, and I've heard people kind of diss the story a little bit, saying it was too short, or really you didn't care about it, or something like that. I've heard stories like that. I'm like, I thought it was quite enjoyable. Making Scarecrow the evil villain made wonders on this game. It really showed how good the character of Scarecrow is. And if you know anything about me personally, if you're a friend of mine, they already know this. I'm not a big fan of the last trilogy of movies. I did not care for Batman Begins, especially. Couple of reasons. One, did not like that version of Ra's al Ghul, although Liam Neeson did play a hell of a good part. But mainly I did not like Crane. I did not like that version of Scarecrow. But then again, there's a lot more to that. I'm not a big fan of the Christopher Nolan Batman movies, mainly because it don't feel right for a Batman movie, or even a video game if they were going to put it in a video game sense. They feel wrong. They feel like this shouldn't exist. But that's a whole nother review, another whole topic entirely. Let's get back to the game. They did well with Scarecrow. And then they introduced a new character called the Arkham Knight. If you already know where it went to, and I'm assuming because it's been about a week since this game is out, so I'm not even going to worry about spoilers at this point. If you've seen it on a stream, or if you have the game, beaten the game already, you know who the Arkham Knight is. But I knew who the Arkham Knight is well before this game came out, and it was just too easy. It was really too easy, and I think a lot of Batman fans figured it out right away. It's a character that's got a vengeance wants to get revenge on Batman. You would think, well, that goes for every character that's a villain. Like, not necessarily. I mean, there's other characters. More specific, one called Red Hood, which was a former Robin character. Jason Todd being that character. It is revealed through the story that they kind of prolong it, but you already knew by this point who it was. The way that Arkham Knight acts is very obvious from the beginning that this is going to be Jason Todd. If it wasn't apparent enough, when you pre-ordered the game at GameStop, you were going to get a Red Hood pack as an exclusive GameStop thing. So that should have clued in right away who the Arkham Knight's going to be. Um, so yeah, I knew who it was, but it didn't deter the factor of how the story was played. I enjoyed the Arkham Knight character being played out. I enjoyed how the story went out, and of course, there are other great things about the game, such as its graphics are really great for the PS4 or Xbox One. I don't have an Xbox One. I only have a PS4, but I do have a gaming PC, and I'll talk about the PC stuff later. The PS4 version worked fine. I didn't have a single problem. Maybe a couple graphical glitches, whether it be a minor thing, someone glitching through the floor, or the Batmobile glitching because it can. But those are minor bugs that are almost expected to happen on launch day. It's not like it's game breaking. I beat this game without having many of those things happen, in fact. So it's very few in between. That being said, there's some bad things about this game. One, it is the Batmobile. Outside of controls and how it looks, because it looks fantastic. The only thing I would gripe about the look of it is that it looks like the Christopher Nolan version of the Batmobile a little too much. Doesn't feel like where the Arkham games really came from, and I'll get to that in a moment here. But the problem with the Batmobile mostly in this game is that it's overused. How overused? Well, I would want to say half of the Riddler missions or trophies that you have to go after, because yes, Riddler's going to be in this game, and I think that was easy to figure out. You have to use the Batmobile. Just on Riddler alone, over half of these. There are other missions that require literally use of the Batmobile only. You cannot beat it as just Batman by himself. And I want to say about 50% of the game, in terms of side missions, are Batmobile stuff. And that's not including the main story mission. And in the main story mission, it's good 60% of that one's using the Batmobile. It really became less of a gadget and more of a gimmick of the game. And yes, the Batmobile looks cool. It has great controls. I never really had a problem with it. My biggest issue with it is that after a while, your fingers starting to hurt when you're holding a PlayStation 4 controller. Because, and I'll disconnect it real quick, its cord, because it's wireless. You have to hold the triggers. And in order to hold one end of the trigger, and I'm sorry for the light, let me get the other one, that'd be better. You disconnect, of course, because you need to have space, but you hold down, I think it was L2, which is such a trigger, and you have to hold it down to go into tank mode. If you let go of it, you go back into its normal Batmobile, where it's just kind of more of a racing vehicle at that point. And the racing part is not that problem. To accelerate, you press the R2 button and hold it down. That's simple. You can brake with the square button, and that's typical of most games. You have a button that you have to hold down to accelerate. When it comes to tank mode, which most of this game uses the tank option, you have to hold it down for whatever amount of time, and then you have to hold the R2 to fire your main gun, or R1 to fire the turrets. After a while, and especially if you're doing the side missions, let's say you've beaten the main mission, you're still continuing on to finish off the rest of it. because you want that 100% file. You will spend literal hours just holding these two buttons down all the time. And it does come to a point where it hurts really the index fingers of your hand. And holding it down, even if you don't hold it very hard, you can hold it like very light. It's still being in that position, and then you're focusing on the game. You're focusing on every single aspect of where you got to fire and where you got to turn and everything to fire your main gun or your turrets to shoot down missiles. It just hurts to play. And maybe that's a flaw with this controller. I don't know about the Xbox controller, Xbox One version of the controller. And I would have played with the Xbox 360 controller on my PC if the game was working on the PC. Right now it's not. I'll put that down. That being said, I'll get back to that PC thing in a moment. The tank is fun to play with, but not for an extended long period of time. And eventually you want to go glide. You want to play as Batman and do his Predator mode, which is basically his stealth. Or go up and beat up a bunch of bad guys just because you can. You know, or maybe you want to look for the Riddler stuff. Or do another side mission that doesn't involve the Batmobile. You know, it boils down to that the game uses that vehicle way too often and way too much. It's great on how it works. It was a nice novelty, and I understood that they wanted to involve and incorporate the Batmobile more since Arkham Asylum. But too much, too often is its problem, and that's its downside. Its upside, controls are fine. It looks fantastic. Maybe too much of the Christopher Nolan version of the Batmobile, but I'll forgive it if it's trying to be a tank at the same time. But yeah, it looks fine. Now going to the PC problem, just before I get to the rest of the PS4 problems, because there are some other ones. The PC version, if you haven't heard already, and I'm sure you guys have, is that it launched with major problems. One was it's crashing all the time. It never really stopped. You get to a point you're starting to enjoy the game. You've maybe gotten 10 to 11% of the story done, and then suddenly crash. Start it back up, thinking, okay, maybe your PC couldn't handle it. Maybe it was too warm in your room. You're thinking, oh, maybe it's a PC issue, not so much the game. Get back into the game, maybe play 15 minutes, again, it hits a crash. And it was a constant thing, and it was whether it was just a mission that didn't load right, or it was a loading screen that was having problems loading. Overall, the game was having these issues, and it was very apparent. Even high-end machines that have one of the latest NVIDIA graphics cards, because I can't think of it right now. It's kind of early in the morning, and I'm a little tired. It would have issues with that, or you may have the best processor, an Intel i7, whatever core it is, or something like that, and next thing you know, crash, and you don't know why, and so it got backlash after backlash after backlash after backlash, because it crashed, it would glitch, it couldn't be played, it was game-breaking glitches, stuff like that. And Warner Brothers basically said, okay, take it off PC, we're going to fix this, and yeah, you can't buy it on the PC. Now, I was fortunate enough to buy it way back in December on the Humble Bundle store.com place, and I bought it right on Christmas. My grandfather gave me $50 for Christmas, and I said, what am I going to use this for? And I said, Batman. Because I was very I love the Batman Arkham games. I played Arkham Asylum Game of the Year. It was the first one I got the chance when I got a chance to play it on my PC. I played it, I beat it, and I enjoyed it. Then I got City. First time I got it was on a 360 because my dad bought it for me for Christmas. Played it, beat it, I enjoyed it. And then I later bought it on PC when it was on sale for summer. And then, of course, Arkham Origins was another one. And by far, Origins is the weakest of the full set of Arkham games, but it was still enjoyable. It wasn't totally game-breaking. It had a side mission that was game-breaking, but other than that, it was fine. Arkham Knight's PC release was a big failure, and this is coming off also the heels of when Warner Brothers released MKX for PC, because that was very bad, and a lot of people are saying blaming Warner Brothers for that, or they're blaming NetherRealm for that. It was Steam. Steam, which is owned by Valve, kind of fucked up its release. I wouldn't blame that on Warner Brothers, but PR-wise, Warner Brothers got blamed for it. As far as Batman Arkham Knight, they took it and suspended it from being purchased. If you already own it, you can still play it. But if you don't own it, you have to wait or get a console and buy the game. And they have a PS4 bundle with the Batman game. So if you really want to try it out, buy that for now. Otherwise, I would suggest wait. If you have high-end PC, wait until it comes back on the Steam thing, and I'm sure they'll kind of reimburse you, the people who have already bought it. I was fortunate enough to be smart about it and not get the season pass for PC, so yeah, that was me. But Arkham Knight, very fun game. Overall, I never really seen a whole lot of problems or issues with it. There are a few things I didn't like about the side missions. The main story is perfectly fine. I don't think there was really any problems with it. And outside of the Batmobile parts of the side missions, and I'll exclude those ones because those aren't really that bad, just annoying. There are a few side missions I wish that could have been better, longer, more build up to them. One of them is the Penguin one, because Penguin has his own. And the other one is probably Two-Face. I would have enjoyed more from those two, because they were supposed to be like a bigger thing. And another one, this one never really became a side mission. It was part of the main story. And that's Harley Quinn. And a lot of people, I think, were expecting Harley Quinn to have a side mission. And she never got one. She was part of the main storyline, and then after the main story, her part of the main storyline ended. That was it with Harley Quinn, and the only way you could play with Harley Quinn afterwards was her story pack, which I have not gotten to. Neither Red Hoods. I've tried a little bit of it, but I was like, I want to go back to the main game and start New Story Plus. And those are the ones I wish that they kind of incorporated more and less of the Batmobile stuff. The Batmobile ones include one where you see a mine in the ground somewhere in the city. You have to hack it with a bunch of viruses so you can destroy it safely. And while you're waiting to hack it, and while it's trying to be hacked, you have all these other tanks surrounding you, and you have to destroy all of those other tanks. And once they're all gone, then you can hack the mine and destroy it safely and securely. And that's not a big issue, but there's too many of them. But it gets even worse when you have to do like other missions that involve car chases or something like that. The Batmobile is just too much use of it. So that's its really big problem. That's it. Other than that, it's fine. I don't see where people are really bitching so much about it. I've heard people say the story was very disappointing. They were expecting something longer, something better, something to incorporate all the other side missions. And they more or less did incorporate the other side missions. in order to do the Penguin side story missions, you have to play the main story to unlock that little bit of content. In order to do the Riddler ones, the same thing. Uh, overall, it is really well done for the main story. The gameplay, I never really seen a problem with it. It didn't really add too many new gadgets into it. They brought back a lot of the old favorites, and including the Freeze Blast, which you don't need until, I guess, from what I hear, is in New Story Plus when you actually need it. Not sure on that. But it's one of the only gadgets you don't actually need. The other gadgets, let's see, what was the new one that they added besides the Batmobile? They didn't really add too many new ones. I think they only added maybe one outside of the Batmobile, and I can't think of what it was called. Oh, no, yeah, now it is. It's the voice synchronizer, where you can open up doors and stuff like that. You taking the voice of a villain like Harley Quinn and then matching the way she would speak and her voice to your when you say it. So it was really nice to have that gadget because it unlocks specific areas of the game. But other than that, they didn't really add too many other gadgets. And I think that's a little lame. I would have appreciated more gadgets than they did, but I think they were running out of ideas of what potential gadgets they can use. They really showed upgrades for the Batmobile, and that's where the Batmobile got more better as you played on. Let's see, Scarecrow, facing him, there is no payoff. It's very weird how they did this. There's a big payoff with Arkham Knight. After you beat him and you find out who he is, which is Jason Todd, and once you try to get him on your side again, and then all of a sudden you have to go do this other thing because Scarecrow's invading another part of the city. And that was that payoff, and it would still affect the story as you played on it. You know it's going to. It just isn't going to happen at this moment. When it comes to Scarecrow, there is no payoff. And he's the last guy you go after. And that was probably its major disappointment. I can see why people didn't like that. But as I'm currently doing right now, I'm currently playing New Story Plus to see if it changes anything. And there are a few things that have changed already. It mainly happened right in the very beginning of the game when I started up New Story Plus. But just to keep that a secret, I won't even reveal what that is. As you're playing the main game, you're stopping a bomb. In the main story, you're stopping a bomb from happening that will unleash the Scarecrow toxin upon the eastern side of Gotham, according to the game, if I remember correctly. And basically, as you're trying to reduce the blast radius, you get like 3 of the 4 canisters in. You go after the 4th, and as you turn around, the first thing you see is Joker. Now, if you've played the other ones, you know Joker dies in Arkham City. Flat out, just dies. At the start of this game, Arkham Knight, the first thing you do is cremate Joker. You just literally burn his corpse. So, when you see Joker just pop up behind you, it's a jump scare. It's a cheap jump scare, but it's not something you immediately expected to see in the game in the first place. You might have expected to see Joker in the beginning, cremating him, or how they dealt with his death, but you didn't immediately think it was going to be any more into the game outside of maybe Harley Quinn. So to see him just show up out of nowhere was just random. There are 2 things I like, and then there's one thing I hate about it. The one thing I hate about it is that this game couldn't leave Joker alone. It's one of the few things where I kind of wish Joker wasn't a part of it. It was the game would stand alone better on its own merits without Joker involved. Sure, you can use flashbacks where Joker is involved, or you can have the enemy, like bad guys, little minion guys that are on the streets mention Joker's name or something like that. But other than that, you didn't need to have him involved with the game. There's no need for it. It was just one of those things where you didn't need him. But they used him. The good things about this is that it really impacts the story. It does connect the story to what's going to happen next. You're not expecting it at all, especially after coming off the heels of Arkham City and Origins. Well, Origins is a prequel, but we'll get to that another day. With the second part of why I like Joker being in this is literally they got Mark Hamill to voice him one more time. I heard rumors a long time ago that after City he was no longer going to do the voice. I kept hearing them, and it was so rampant and out there. I literally thought, yeah, that's probably the last one. And it sounded like his voice was going out with doing the Joker voice as he was. So it seemed likely that he wouldn't reprise the role. But he did. And he does it very fantastically. In fact, he does it better than he did in City. So it's weird. Like, he could probably do it another 3 times if he wanted to. Like, another 3 games. But I don't think that's going to happen. Hell, he even sings as Joker. So it's kind of fun to see that. And it comes, as you play later in the game, he becomes more of a factor. You find out that he's the one that made Barbara Gordon. Like, you see a flashback of Joker shooting Barbara Gordon that made her paralyzed, and made her become Oracle. You see, what else? You see him and how he kidnapped Jason Todd, who was wearing the Robin gear, and beat the living hell out of him for months on months, branding his face with a J on it. Just outright brutalizing the poor kid, torturing him for about a year or so. Which is how Jason Todd becomes Red Hood. It's just because of all that. And so you see this. And flashbacks, which would have been fine if you didn't involve him in the first place, because you could have had it been told through the Arkham Knight's voice. But again, it's not that big of a deal. I think it would have been done better with Joker in the long run, because it would have been a better storyline. And I think that's the reason why they put him in. And going to compare, like, what Origins version of Joker is compared to the other ones, the other Arkham games, is that they had 2 different voice actors. Origins had a younger version of Joker, so therefore they went with a younger version of Joker's voice, because Mark Hamill couldn't pull that off. And they did that for most of the characters in that game. Like, you didn't hear any of the original cast from the TV show, the animated series TV show from the 90s. And that's where this cast comes from, and this is where I always thought the game really took place from. It took place in the universe of the animated series, not necessarily the movies, not necessarily the comics. It took place in the animated series universe of 1990s. And it was kind of a disappointment to see that, in a sense, because there's so much more they could have added in. But at the same time, if you're a kid in the 90s like I was, and most of my friends were, you appreciated it more. And this game is really targeting the people that grew up in the 90s. It's one of those games where it targets them, not necessarily the younger generation that we have now, or the older generation that grew up with the 1966 Batman. However, I like Arkham Knight. They gave out skins, free skins if you pre-ordered it for the PS4, which made you look like the 1966 Batman. And have the Batmobile look like the 1966 Batmobile. So, props. But other than that, the game is solid. I didn't really see any too many other problems with the game. I wish the PC version was working. I honestly do. The fact that it's not disappoints me. The fact that it's got so many negative reviews because it's not working properly disappoints me. Mainly because at this point, the PC version of the Arkham games never had a problem. This was the first time they actually had a major problem with them. When it came to the console versions, they run fine. They work perfectly. They have no problems. So, I don't know. I've heard that it wasn't Rocksteady that did this. They had another group of people do the ports, which they half-assed it. I don't know if that's what's going on with that. I don't really read into all that because it's something that I know who's at fault. And it's not that company that did it, that half-assed it. It's Warner Brothers. They fucked up. So, let's see, what other bad things was wrong with Arkham Knight? The Joker. Not Joker, but Riddler. Why did I say Joker? Maybe it's because it's 3 in the morning. Riddler. If you've played any Arkham games in the past, I think the first Arkham Asylum had a little over 100 or so collectibles you had to collect, which are just trophies usually. Some of them are riddles, some of them are breakable objects, but most of them were just trophies. That was fine. Then Arkham City came out. And Arkham City had over 400. I remember that, and I remember doing them. It took me hours to complete. I did them without a guide, for most part. There were some I had to use a guide to find. Whether how to do them, what am I missing here, what gadget I'm using incorrectly, stuff like that. But other than that, that one was a long one. That had a whole bunch of them. And then Origins came out. Origins didn't have Riddler. Had a character named Enigma, but they didn't necessarily have Riddler. And it was a weird thing because the way Enigma worked was exactly how Riddler would work. And I never completed that one. Mainly because there was no trophies to collect. It was all about breaking down like a bunch of breakable objects in every area you went to. It wasn't fun. It was boring. And after a while, I just stopped. I didn't like it. It wasn't worth it. So when I was seeing Arkham Knight, I was hoping they got better from Origins. And they did. There's a slight problem, though. They made 2 things with this side mission of Riddlers. One is you collect 243 riddles, essentially, which includes actual riddles that are based on Batman relevancy. Then there's the trophies, and then there's the breakable objects, and then there's a new thing, which I'm trying to remember correctly what it was. There was a 4th thing that involves the tank only. It's a breakable object. No, it wasn't a breakable object. It was the Riddler has implanted bombs in the brains of suspects who are mass murderers, and he doesn't have very many of these. But you have to use a remote control batarang to scan to find out who the one is, and then you have to use another remote control batarang, get it electrified, and then hit that person with it so that you can destroy the bomb without killing the guy. Those were annoying because if you couldn't find the electricity thing, you were fucked. And only one instance did not use this, which annoyed me even more. You had to use another gadget that used electricity that you have, which at that point made that even more pointless to even do the other ones the exact same way and have this one be different. But it was few and far between with that one. But there are 243 riddles. I've heard people bitch about this. I'm sorry. I don't think that's bad. 243, sure, is a lot. But they're not that bad. The trophies are really easy to get. They're not as painstakingly hard to get as it was, outside of one of them, as it was in Arkham City. Arkham City had over 400. And that was annoying. And some of them were really difficult to pull off because there was a puzzle involved to get the trophy. There's only one that was incredibly difficult to obtain, and I've seen people have problems of trying to attain it because the time is wrong. And it involves the Batmobile to do. There are these question marks, and the puzzle is that you have to hit the ones that are lit up, and there's about 10 or 11 of them. I think there's actually 11 total of them, and you have to hit them with the tank cannon off your Batmobile to move on to the next one, and you just keep picking them off. Next thing you know, you have 4, and then you ping all 4 of those off, and then you have another 4, ping all 4 of those off, and then all of them light up. Now you think you have enough time to knock all 11 out in time, but you don't. You only have enough time to get 8 of the 11, and then it restarts. So, my problem with this one is that they didn't immediately tell you what you need to do at that point. They just say, okay, you need to do it this fast and do it fast. So, if you don't notice what you're doing, you're going to fuck up a lot. So, you're trying to go faster, so to the point where you're so damn good that you think you're going to do it. But you just don't have enough time. And I think I've gotten it up to 9 out of 11 of that last set. And I couldn't get it done. So I thought, what the hell was I missing with this? I had to look up a video to show me exactly what I'm doing wrong. And I wasn't doing anything wrong, except that I needed to use another ability that's on the Batmobile, which launches missiles. And I was like, fucking Christ, really? Well, I'm doing this and I realized I'm not really built up to use missiles because it has a build-up gauge, which is I understand why they do it, but it's annoying. And that's how you solve that one. But it is probably the only one where you literally can be frustrated with. But again, 243 is completely doable. The people that are bitching about, like, oh, we should only have to do 100, there's enough padding in this game. Listen to me. The ones that you should be complaining about are just the Batmobile side missions. The Riddler one is fine. I have to compare that to Arkham City's and Origins. Origins was a failure on that one. It was very, very boring. City had over 400 of them. And that was annoying. It wasn't bad. It was just infuriating to do 400 trophies. Or riddles. But there's another aspect to the Riddler stuff in Arkham Knight. And that is you have to save Catwoman. And you have to do all these Riddler challenges to eventually save her. She has a collar, because that's what Riddler chose, that needs 9 keys to take off. Otherwise, it'll explode. It's a bomb collar. And so you have to complete race, or a challenge, or a puzzle to unlock a key, and then you have to call back to where he's headed now and help her get another key, and you just alternate between back and forth, and that's a little bit of annoying. If it was just that for the Riddler, I wouldn't have so much of a problem with the Riddler, but it's stacked with the trophies. And in order to beat Riddler and his final thing, you have to collect all the riddles and trophies and breakable objects and the bomb implanted in people's heads. And that alone took me, I want to say, about 10 hours. Just collecting and doing Riddler's own side mission. And that alone is it as long as the main story. Everything else is maybe, I want to say about 5 hours at most. Most of them are like an hour long. So, Riddler got a lot done with his character. I wish that Penguin had more. I wish that Two-Face had more. But they don't. Their missions are like an hour to an hour and a half. And that's a disappointment. They introduced a new character, which I think was... this is the first time I've ever heard it. I'm sure it's been in the comics. I don't know. And it's called a character named Professor Pig. The name being spelled P-Y-G. His side mission is more inclined to how Hush was played out in Arkham City. You find a body, you have to scan it to find its identity because its DNA has been altered, and you have to search like what the identity is. So you look for deformities, implants, whatever. And you find about 6 bodies, and you find where Professor Pig is located, and you beat him. There's a few other ones. Firefly makes a return. Let's see. There's a side mission where you go find all the firemen that have been like kidnapped and stuff like that. So there's quite a few things done that they did impressively, but a problem with it is that there was too much focus on the Batmobile and Riddler side missions. And this does not include the main mission. The main mission is fine. It should be about 10 to 15 hours on the main mission alone. The side missions should never last that long. I remember when I did Arkham City, I don't think it took me like 10 hours to do the Riddler side because there were so many. You could find them immediately, and a lot of them were just out there and easy to find. And then, of course, Asylum took you maybe 2-3 hours to complete them all because there was only a little over 100. The point that you would do this, though, is to unlock skins and or unlock like bios of the characters, or just see like what they look like with a closer vision. Like they showed the character models and everything. So I've done it all. I've 100% of the game on just the main story, not New Story Plus. But and this is where I'm thinking New Story Plus comes a factor. There is one showcase item I have not unlocked. And I don't know what that is, but I know it's a skin. I don't know if it's a Batman skin or a Robin skin because it's in between the two. But I have 104 out of 105 showcase items unlocked. And I have 100% the main game. So I don't know what that one is. And my assumption is that you have to play through New Story Plus and 100% it to unlock it. Which, by the way, gonna fucking suck. But here's a plus with New Story Plus, and this is what I already know. One, it is harder. Thank you, phone. It is more difficult to play because it takes away the counter. What's the word I'm thinking about? It takes away the indicator. There we go. The counter indicator on the enemy, so when you're fighting them, it's going to be a little bit more harder to counter them. But the other thing it does, and this is more on the Riddler stuff, it takes all those riddles solved, says, yeah, you already solved those, you don't have to do that again. So that makes that whole thing cut down to from 10 to about 3, because the cool thing about the Riddler side missions is you can literally go through them all before you even beat the main story. You just continuously go through them all. It's the same thing. You can do that with Penguin, I think. You can even do it with Two-Face. And I know that there's other missions in here. One of them involves Hush, which is fantastic because it's actually continuing off the heels if you completed it from Arkham City. So there's a lot of things that loose ends that they had in Arkham City that they're completing. Like Azrael is in the game, so you complete his little side mission. It's gonna suck on New Story Plus, but yeah, that's pretty much what they did. So all this being said, it was overall fun. I would say that I'd probably give this maybe an 8 out of 10. PC, I'm not gonna give it a rating right now because it's not available. It's broken. It needs to be fixed. But so it's not really fair to assess that is a rating for it. But for the PS4 and I'm assuming Xbox One owners, 8 out of 10. I would say buy it. I'd say play it. I'd say do all the stuff. If you've already pre-ordered it and you have those side mission, the Arkham episodes, and you have the season pass, go get that. Go play that versions of them. It is very fun to play as Red Hood. I haven't tried Harley Quinn out. I do plan to, but again, it's fun. It's enjoyable. I know I revealed some spoilers here, but nothing that really would destroy the gameplay for you because I didn't reveal what they're all going to do. Like, I know Harley Quinn's part of the main story, but I didn't tell you how it's going to work with and why Joker's around. So, anyways, I hope you enjoyed this review. I know it's a bit longer. I know it's a little late, but it's the way I can get the best lighting. Because if I did this in midday, all this side right here is going to be just pure white. Didn't matter if I close the blinds or anything, you know. It's just going to be pure white. So doing it at night is much better, and I just kind of did this a spur of a moment and see if I wanted to try this even further. So yeah, 8 out of 10. I hope you enjoyed this video. Go give this a play. If you have a PS4 and Xbox One, definitely give it a play. If you're waiting for the PC version, you're gonna be waiting probably about, it's already been a week. I want to say probably about a month, at least, because I got a lot of issues to take care of. So anyway, see you all later. Good night.